Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. Wow. So, the first semi-final has been decided here at the ATP Finals in Turin. And I tell you what, it's going to be a cracker, you would imagine. Novak Djokovic versus Alexander Zverev, and it definitely hasn't disappointed this year. A pretty close game at Australian Open where it was 4 sets. Zverev actually had chances to take it to 5 and potentially win that match. Djokovic eventually overcoming Zverev in the quarterfinals and going on to win that. Then, of course, they also faced in the Olympics, where Djokovic was a set and a break up in the Olympics, and Zverev came back from a set and a break down to go on to win that semi-final and also win the actual gold medal in the final against Karen Khachanov, which was really impressive. And on top of that, they played out an incredible 5-setter at the US Open in the semi-finals, where Djokovic, unfortunately for him and his fans, fell at the final hurdle of trying to achieve the Grand Slam, just losing to Daniil Medvedev in the final. But let's be honest, a lot of that, well, definitely a huge factor anyway, would have been him playing out a marathon match in the semi-finals against Zverev. Zverev is definitely someone who we know can cause Djokovic problems. He beat him in the final a few years back in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, where he won the ATP Finals in London at the O2. So this is definitely, if I'm Djokovic, apart from Medvedev, Zverev is probably the only other player that I'm particularly worried about. Right, before we get into it, a couple of things. Please do remember to like the video if you don't mind. Really does help us out a great deal. And also do subscribe to the channel for more tennis content like this. So we will be doing previews, reviews, of course, as we always do. And also we will be doing live streams. So for example, tomorrow we should be perfectly fine doing this match at 1 p.m, the live stream. We should be doing the whole match. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really, really looking forward to it. It should be a cracker. Djokovic versus Zverev. And I can't wait. I genuinely cannot wait. I think it'll be really good. And yeah, I mean, it always gels nicely. Also, if you haven't, please do remember to click the notification bell as well to get alerts to all new videos. We also do have a Patreon if you're interested. A link is in the description of this video. And we also have a Discord server. Now, please do get involved in that because it is, I think, a fantastic way for you guys to get into discussions and interact. Obviously, keep it clean. And yeah, I'll definitely get involved in the Discord server as well once it's up and booming. Cool, let's get straight into this then. So, Djokovic and Zverev, what we're going to do first is we're going to look at their matches so far in Turin. Djokovic still has to play Cam Norrie later today, so I'm recording this before that match. Obviously, he's already made the semi-finals. I would imagine that he's probably going to beat Cam Norrie. I would give him an 85% chance of beating Cam Norrie because one, Cam Norrie can't actually qualify anyway after losing to Ruud, but he will be, I think, looking to at least get a consolation win, no doubt. But also, it's not the O2, and he came in as a second alternate. So, not just those factors. The biggest factor is just how good Djokovic is, and I don't think the matchup is quite good for. Let's just say it's not the best matchup of styles for Cam Norrie. Hits the backhand very flat, the forehand, a lot of topspin, and really he is what a lot of people might say a worse version of Nadal in a few ways. They're definitely different in a few aspects, but I think if you want to really dumb it down, which I have done because I don't want to talk about it too much, I think Djokovic should overcome him, and I don't think you'll have too many issues there. So let's just assume that he wins that. That means that he's won all his group games and he tops the group, right? So unbeaten. Zverev has lost one match to Medvedev. The others he's won. We're going to go through the head-to-heads as well in terms of matches played so far in this tournament and how I think each has played. Then we're also going to look at their specific head-to-head, Djokovic versus Zverev, and look at previous matches as well, which I've already briefly discussed at the start of the video. Then I'm going to talk about where I think the match can be won and lost for both players, and that should be it. And yeah, I mean, I think as a matchup, it never really fails to disappoint. So I'm hoping the same happens here. So let's have a look at the most recent matches for Djokovic. Obviously, you see their Paris Masters. So prior to this tournament, the first tournament he had after the US Open was the Paris Masters, and he played pretty well in that. Let's be honest. I thought. I mean, he had to overcome. Let's have a look at his run the Paris Masters very briefly. So Fucsovics, obviously, that's a rusty match. He's come back after a couple of months out. So, a pretty significant layoff after trying to mentally, I think, more than anything, recover. Did well against Fucsovics to get through that. Then won Feast. Got a walkover. Taylor Fritz, I know there were some seesaw games there. Could have gone either way. But Djokovic coming up clutch in the important moments. And that is pretty much Djokovic's MO. Hurkacz as well. Look, I mean, Hurkacz took the first set off Djokovic, and he's been playing very well up until this finals, to be fair, where he's I think being disappointing is the right word for it, because I expect a lot more from him. He was actually my predicted winner, because I went really left field, and you kind of get a little bit high on people during periods of good form, and he was in that, but it lasted a very short time, and it really was fleeting. Daniil Medvedev, obviously, then in the final, that was a really impressive win. I think it definitely would have given him a boost. The head-to-head at the time was 5-4. Medvedev had a chance to equal up the head-to-head, and also have won the last two matches. But Djokovic did really well in that match. And I don't want to break it down too much, because they may potentially face each other in the final. So that's something to really break down tactically if and when the time comes. But Djokovic versus Ruud, I watched that match. He was a breakdown early doors. Ruud was playing really good tennis. I thought very good depth in the ground strokes, and Djokovic wasn't quite firing on all cylinders, and that's why I think this has happened in quite a few matches this year, where he's been a slow starter, and it's been a slow burn. It really has. And then as soon as he gets through about half, three quarters, or even a set, at times he'll concede the set. He then just comes back, and it just looks really, really good. And you can just see him going through the gears mentally and physically, and that's it. And as soon as he's dialed in, it's very, very hard to then wrestle the match away from him. A good example, I guess, is at Roland Garros, where he dropped the first set to my favorite player, I'm happy to admit it, Nadal. And Nadal absolutely demolished him in the first set. And then Djokovic, well, he had a chance to bagel him, and then Djokovic didn't let him. He won, he won a game at the end of that first set. I think he won two, actually, in the end. Then you go into the second and third set, and Djokovic, the level from Djokovic went through the roof. And Nadal managed to keep up for the most part, but it was way too much in the end. And Djokovic has played a little bit like that in a lot of matches. I mean, for example, the infamous US Open run, where he dropped the first set in nearly every single match. That, I think, says it all. And he made the final there, right? And nearly ended up winning the tournament. Rublev, this was an interesting one, because they'd never played before. And I felt like, again, even more so, he would have taken his time. And he did. It took him a little bit of time to figure out how Rublev plays. I think Rublev, realistically, is tailor-made in terms of styles for Djokovic. Big forehand, pretty weak on the backhand side in terms of, comparatively speaking, to a lot of the players on tour like Djokovic. You have a very solid weapon of a forehand. First serve for Rublev is pretty good. I think he served well in this tournament, but his second serve is a big weakness. And then also his variety. Doesn't really have a backhand slice, doesn't come to the net, doesn't transition too well. So, a little bit one-dimensional. But if he's able to consistently, for a whole match, really push his qualities and, I guess, play at a very top level, which he did for some of that first set anyway, then he can be a menace for anyone, because there's not many that hit the ball as cleanly as him on the forehand side. And when his feet are moving correctly and he's managing to time the ball well, it's very, very hard to play against him. And that's why he's had success, because he is talented for sure. He's got a very limited but strong skill set in those few skills that he does possess. And I feel like if you can add to his game, he will be a threat, no doubt. But Djokovic, anyway, coming through that in the end and was serving phenomenally in that. The matches against Rublev and Ruud, I thought I've been very, very impressed with his serve. And it was almost reminiscent of the Australian Open, where, to be fair, those courts were a little bit quicker as well. US Open, they weren't as slow as previous years, but not as quick as the Australian Open ones. But here, the courts are very quick. Very, very quick. And you can tell because there's a lot more points where, people are just managing to serve clean aces, clean winners. They're managing to hit clean winners. And the points are maybe not as long as possible. But what is amazing is that despite all of that, the courts being that quick, we still are seeing longer rallies because it just shows how fit and athletic these guys are. So I'm glad the courts are a bit quicker because you don't want to see rallies going longer than 30 shots. It's ridiculous. And not ridiculous in the sense that it's not enjoyable to watch. It can be at times, but it's almost like you need reward for hitting good shots and you need to be able to get onto the front foot. And it definitely then rewards more aggressive play. And that, in terms of a fan watching, is more fan friendly for sure. No matter who you support. I mean, if you put that to one side. So Djokovic, anyway, through to semi-finals. We're going to very briefly look at Zverev's run. I'm not going to go into Paris Masters because he lost to Daniil Medvedev in straight sets. He was quite tired after it felt like he was tired after the Dimitrov and Ruud match there. So I don't want to look into that too much. Berrettini won. That was a very, very tight first set. Obviously, the crowd against him. Berrettini being Italian. Zverev, I thought, played okay in that match. In the start of the match, I thought he was good. He was proactive on the return. He's a very good return in general. And he tried to be proactive in the points in his ground strokes. He's got power. He's got easy power when he wants to utilize it. He also has an incredible skill set. He pretty much has everything. The issue that he has is that sometimes he will go into ball machine mode, is what I like to call it, which is something that Medvedev can do at times, but Medvedev, the way that he strikes the ball in terms of hitting it so low over the net, and I think his ability to get the balls is Zverev is very good in terms of movement-wise, but I think Medvedev on hard courts is definitely a smidge better. And defensively, he's got the upper edge, or upper hand, even on Zverev. And I think Zverev should be playing more proactively. And he did at the start of that set, and then he went into, I'm just going to stick in the rally and hope for the mistake from Berrettini. A lot of backhands cross court, a lot of forehands cross court, not really taking many risks. And I think that's when Zverev, for me, is at his least effective because he has so many weapons at his disposal. I understand he doesn't want to hit a lot of unforced errors and he doesn't want to make a lot of mistakes and lose rhythm. That's understandable. But there's a balance. And I think sometimes he struggles to find that balance. And when he has found that balance, he's had very good results. For example, the Olympics. Had chances as well against Djokovic in the semi-final, that US Open semi-final. And probably, to be fair, the only criticism to be levied at him in that semi-final is that he played slightly too passively on the big points. So that's something that I think he can work on because, I'm an expert. And Medvedev against Zverev was a very good match. Obviously, Medvedev taking that first set very comfortably. Zverev then winning the second set tiebreak. And he almost nicked it from Medvedev in that third set. I don't want to say it would have been undeserved, but it would have been a little bit. In the sense that Zverev was having to work a lot harder in his service games, and Medvedev not as much. Obviously, the courts are very quick, so Zverev manages to serve quite big, as we know he can and normally does. Then he should really be holding serve, and that's why we ended up seeing two tiebreakers. He takes that final set, and I think Medvedev would have felt a little bit hard done by, but that can happen. You can just lose. People lose 7-6, 7-6 all the time on the ATP Tour. And, it's been a very even match, but a couple of points, can swing it. And all it takes is someone to play better in the big match moments. And that's it. The match is gone. And that is how cruel tennis can be at times. So Zverev, I think, though, then playing against Hurkacz looks slightly better. And in fact, let's just dive into this a little bit because I would like to dive into and have a look in terms of 11 aces each for each in that match. In terms of winners and unforced errors, 22 winners for Zverev, 8 unforced errors. So that's very, very impressive. It's a lot more aggressive, I thought, than the Daniil Medvedev match. And if we look at the Daniil Medvedev match as a comparison, there are 14 aces there, slightly more actually in that match, but 36 winners to 27 unforced errors. So in terms of proportionally, considering that was 3 sets as well, I would say that, he played a lot better in the Hurkacz match. Sorry, 48 winners compared to 25 unforced errors even, sorry. Which actually is quite a substantial amount of winners. In fact, he hit more winners and less unforced errors than Medvedev. But then you need to also think about forced errors that Medvedev does create quite a lot for his opponents. But I think the biggest difference in that match for Zverev was the fact that he wasn't playing aggressively enough in the big moments. I think maybe I'm being a bit harsh about saying that he plays passively generally. I think it's more when it comes to the crunch moments at times, he can fall into his shell. So that's something that he needs to avoid against Djokovic, because we saw the success he had at the Olympics. Okay, we're going to have a look at the... Yeah, we're going to have a very quick look at the head-to-head, their specific head-to-head, and then we will wrap it up. So, as you can see here, I bring this up for you guys, the official head-to-head. So, as you can see here, 7-3 to Novak Djokovic, which, look, I mean, that's no surprise there, to be fair. It's interesting, isn't it? Zverev's only 24. Wow. You know, I thought he was 25, 26, but still very young. 34, obviously, we know this. We know all these stats. We don't need to look at that. Well, look at the career prize one here. Sorry. Getting distracted. Right, so let's look at the head-to-head. So I'm going to not go further back than maybe 2 years. I think, you know, obviously we can see here, first couple of matches in 2017, Zverev actually won their first encounter in Rome. Zverev was a very good clay court player, to be fair. So that's not a massive surprise, but in a way it is, because their first, you know, normally when Djokovic faces someone, the first match that they play, they don't normally get the upper hand on him. You can see in Shanghai as well, outdoor hard, though, Djokovic having the upper hand. Then there was that famous win 6-4, 6-3 against Djokovic in 2018, which we talked about in the Nitto ATP Finals. Yeah, which is cool. Round robin though, he lost apparently. But I don't know why they've got it ordered in that way. That makes no sense. But anyway, yeah, obviously Roland Garros, Djokovic winning the French, no surprise there. And then you can see here, he's then had a very good run from the Australian, from basically Roland Garros 2019 to the 2021 Australian Open, where he pretty much had Zverev's number. No matches going past 4 sets, and really just looked quite comfortable in the end. But what changed? What changed? That Olympic match. Now, Zverev needs to take a lot from this, because it's the same format. Now, in the US Open, it's a best of 5, and I always would back Djokovic in a best of 5 against Zverev. However, when it comes down to best of 3, Zverev is one of the best when it comes to best of 3 matches. He manages to manage the sets quite well. He can come out the blocks quite quickly as well. Djokovic can be quite slow, and I think if Zverev takes the first set, he's got a good chance of winning this match. The issue for Zverev is that if Djokovic takes the first set, it's almost 95% sure. I'm about 95% sure that Djokovic will win the whole match. He's only lost once this whole year when he has won the first set. So if you have a think about that, every match that he's played, whenever he's won the first set, he's gone on to win bar one match this whole year. So he's an incredible front runner. And the one match that he lost, which is on screen, is against Alexander Zverev, where he was 6-1 up and a break up in that second set, and Zverev came back. So Zverev, even if he loses the first thing, he'll probably take a little bit of confidence from, well, he'll take some confidence for sure from that and say, well, I can do it again. But ideally, he'll be thinking, I need to get the first set. Because if I get the first set here, I can put pressure on Djokovic. I can try and blow him away in potentially even straight sets, but I need to play my best tennis. So in terms of matchups, if we want to talk about tactically where it will be won or lost, serve return is going to be key because the courts are so quick. Any returns that you can make, the more returns you make, the better, no doubt. Of course, depth is the ideal for returns, but on some of the serves that, for example, Djokovic has been hitting in corners, spot serving, he's not serving 130, 140 miles an hour. He's serving about 115 to 125 at times. it doesn't matter because the courts are so quick. He serves right in the corners of the boxes, and it's almost impossible to get to. Now, Zverev's got a very, very long reach, similar to Medvedev, and he's, to be fair, a very good returner for the most part. If he even manages to make Djokovic play one extra shot, Djokovic is human. And I would say in the past, in 3-4 years ago, Djokovic would just kind of bat, and normally he would be used to it because his serve wasn't as potent as it is now. It wasn't as much of a weapon as it is now. However, now it is. So he's used to being able to get some 3 points on his serve at least. So if you can frustrate him by making more balls on return, that is, then fantastic. And if you can especially be aggressive on the second serve of Djokovic's and put Djokovic on the back foot, Rublev did that quite well, to be fair, on the second serve of Djokovic. In a lot of instances, Rublev stepped in and he said, I'm going to try and make you pay. I'm not going to hit a return down the middle or cross court or down the line with, kind of half court depth. I'm going to go within about, a meter to half a meter within the baseline. And I'm going to try and put you under pressure. I'm going to try and rush you in your 1+ shot. And that's exactly what Rublev did in some instances. And that definitely had a positive mark in Rublev's books for sure. And he'll take that in the next meetings as something that he will continue to try and do if he comes against Djokovic. Of course, some other adjustments needed. Now, Zverev will also need to be dynamic. And when I say that, yes, we know that he can hit well from the back of the court. He needs to make sure he is being proactive, especially with the backhand down the line. The backhand down the line to Djokovic's forehand is a matchup that Zverev should be looking at. That is not to say that he should go early for that backhand down the line, because that's not always the right way to do it. Sometimes people, and Djokovic has done it in a few instances when he's just been getting warmed up, he's gone to the backhand on the line too early, and he's ended up making errors on that. What I would say to Zverev is getting into backhand exchange is not the worst thing in the world, because honestly, I think actually Zverev can win those backhand exchanges. And we saw that in terms of matchups, that he has a very, very good chance in those exchanges, because Zverev's backhand is extremely good. It really is. It's definitely, I think, it's widely regarded as a lot better than his forehand, which can break down at times. His forehand can be a weapon, but it's not as consistent. Whereas Zverev, the backhand doesn't break down as much, and he's able to hit it cleanly and consistently for pretty much the whole time. So if he's able to get into the backhand exchanges, that's fine. He won't mind that. But he will also be looking for the backhand down the line. To drag Djokovic out onto the forehand side, and one thing that a lot of people try to do, and it's very hard to do it, is to get Djokovic on the run on that forehand. If you can get him into an uncomfortable position on that forehand side, it can break down at times. The forehand is a much, much improved weapon, and to be fair, 99% of people on tour would love to have his forehand, because it's now become a weapon. He can dictate in points with it. Djokovic, he's not afraid to go into out with it now as well. When I say not afraid, as in he's happy at times to even forego the backhand and go into out, which is crazy if you think about how good his backhand is. He's just become a fantastic all-round player, no doubt. But everyone has, even if it's small weaknesses, they have some small weaknesses in their game where they look slightly fragile, even if they're the most minuscule of ones. And Djokovic, that's one I feel that can be exploited at times. Zverev is going to have to serve extremely well as well against Djokovic. Djokovic is such a good returner, we know that. But the courts are quick, so that's in his favor. If he can hit his spots, he will get some 3 points. Djokovic, no doubt, will make him play 1 or 2 extra shots than most people. But if Zverev keeps his cool and composure, which is a big, big factor, his composure, and manages to put away the overheads, put away the volleys at the net, for example, then he will be in a good place when it comes to the matchup. And the other thing is his forehand. And I think he needs to be brave on the forehand side. I think he needs to occasionally go down the line with the forehand. Don't just go cross-court. And if you're going to go cross-court, he's got a very good cross-court forehand where he finds a nice acute angle, kind of flatter across the surface. And on these courts, of course, that's a dangerous shot because they're so quick. It's very unlikely that a lot of people will get that. And if they do, they'll be in a defensive position straight away. in the rally. So that's something he can definitely utilize. And what I would also suggest is that he mixes it up a little bit. Mix it up a little bit with the backhand slice. Why not? Vary your ground strokes and just hit at one pace. That's the way to go, I think, to make sure that Djokovic doesn't get into a rhythm. As soon as Djokovic is in a rhythm, it's very, very hard to get him out of that rhythm and to stop him, honestly. For Djokovic, he needs to do pretty much what he's done in terms of serving, which is just serve very well. If he serves like that, it'll be a tough night or tough day even for Alexander Zverev. In terms of returning, we know how good he is. I mean, his goal would be to make as many returns as possible and also be getting as much depth on those returns as possible. And then against the second serve of Zverev, he'll be thinking, I'm going to attack that, make him pay on it. And if I can force Zverev to go for more on the second serve, then maybe he is as comfortable as going with, then potentially that then leads to double faults. And Zverev, we know, has had issues with double faults in the past. He hasn't really shown it, to be fair, for a large portion of this year anyway, if potentially all of it, if I'm not mistaken. So, but it's always there. It's always lurking in the back where it could come to the fore at any point. And if Djokovic forces Zverev to think, oh, hold on, I'm not really going for enough of my second serve, I need to go for more, that's then when that could potentially rear its ugly head. So I think Djokovic is a very smart player, no doubt. He'll know the weapons that Zverev possesses. He'll know it'll probably be a tough match. But he'll also know if he plays one of the big moments, which I think is the biggest factor in this matchup, because I think if both players play extremely well, there's not really much between them, honestly, just because of how the styles match up. Djokovic, we know, is an incredible player. Overall, he's a better player than Zverev, I think. Well, I don't think I know he is. He's the number one player in the world. But when we talk about top levels, and I think if both play at their top level, and I feel like Zverev's ceiling is very high, as we've seen, if both play at their top level, there's not much between them, then it becomes and comes down to who plays the biggest points better. And Djokovic is the master at managing his big points. He really is. He's brave behind them, and he knows 90% of the time how to play each point when it really comes down to the crunch moments. Now, Zverev needs to do the same. So let's see if he can. But I'm very, very excited for this. I'm going to go with... It's very hard to go against Djokovic, honestly, because I think the smart money is Djokovic in 3 sets, honestly. I'm going to go left field. I'm going to say Zverev because of the pace of the courts. It's so contingent on how well Zverev plays, but I think I'm going to just assume, and this is such a big assumption, that he plays some really good tennis. And if he plays near his top level, he will have a chance. I'm going to go Zverev in 3, but I would not be surprised if Djokovic wins in straight sets. I can't see Zverev winning in straight sets, honestly. Even though he has done it in the past, I can't see him winning in straight sets. Just indoors and on hard court, it's difficult for me to see that. Djokovic in straight sets, he could easily, for example, win 6-4, 7-6. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see how it goes. I'm hoping for a tight match either way. You guys know that I don't really specifically support either player. So for me, it's just fantastic watching it as a proper neutral. And I'm looking forward to doing the commentary on it. So do stay tuned and make sure you do get involved in the live watch along, which will be tomorrow. It looks like it's going to be at 1 p.m. UK time, hopefully, from what I can see. The official schedule's not out, but from what I can see from other tennis sites. So if it's then yes, I will definitely be doing it. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell as well to get alerts to all new videos. And please do let me know your prediction as well. Who do you think is going to win and why? And then also, if you want as well, please put your predictions for the whole tournament. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.